What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be reacting to a video about what made OG Fortnite so special from Mujy. His channel will be linked down in the description below. His videos are very good. I like a lot of the content I've seen from him, and he's a newer content creator. As of the time I'm recording this, he has less than 1,000 subs, but his videos are very good if you like kind of commentary and discussion videos about Fortnite and Fortnite's past. This video is going to be about OG Fortnite, so I'm going to talk about my thoughts on OG Fortnite as we watch this video, because as of the time I'm posting this, tomorrow is Fortnite's 6th anniversary. So we had the birthday event this past week, but Fortnite's 6th anniversary is actually September 26th. That's when the game dropped. So I thought this would be kind of a cool topic to kind of talk about for this time and reflect on OG Fortnite and compare it to current Fortnite. As always, if you guys do enjoy this, give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more. And like I said, his channel will be linked down in the description below. I really, really like his videos. It's so sad to see.
Got him! Let's go!
I feel like this is such a W way to open the video, because that is the stark difference between OG Fortnite and Fortnite now. I feel like is like the memes and the trolling and kind of the lightheartedness of the game just gone away over the years. The game has gotten so much more sweaty. The players have gotten a lot better. And, you know, there's matchmaking algorithms to make matches sweaty. This fight here is actually Summit versus Myth. And this is what a lot of people considered like the sweatiest fight at the time. Myth was kind of known as the best builder in early Fortnite. And like if you compare this to players now, this would be well below average in terms of building. But this was the peak back then.
Is this guy a fuck? Oh shit! Holy shit!
This is crazy too. Players were so bad back then. Like, let's just watch that back. There's no bots in the game. This is all real players.
Holy shit!
This is the Loot Island house, by the way, when it was at Loot Lake. The shopping carts. This was Fortnite's first ever vehicle. People would be doing stuff like that in pubs.
Welcome to the street.
The iconic Ninja Revolver clip in Tilted.
Oh my god!
Nostalgia can often dictate our feelings towards the past. It can create a feeling of happiness while at the same time making you sad that whatever it is you're nostalgic about is over. When it comes to Fortnite, many people have a large amount of nostalgia for prior seasons and chapters, but mainly most people have these feelings towards Chapter 1. This time period for the game is often highly regarded as being the best stretch of time for its history, or as most people refer to it, Prime Fortnite. Now undoubtedly, Prime Fortnite is going to be a portion of the game that is going to be different for many people. Nostalgia alone is the deciding factor for this, because the first time you picked up the game is likely going to be what you consider to be Prime Fortnite.
That happens in other games as well. Most COD players consider the best COD to be the one they started in. That's just how it goes.
Whether that's Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, or even Chapter 4, this sentimentality that nostalgia creates for the past dictates how people will view the game when they started. Despite this, OG Fortnite is something that, regardless of nostalgia, holds up to be just as phenomenal as you remember. Now, people will often argue that nostalgia is the main contributing factor to why Chapter 1 specifically is viewed so positively compared to later chapters.
Say, Chapter 3, to me, it's got to be tied with Chapter 1. If you remove the nostalgia aspect, it's got to be tied.
So I'm probably going to make a video ranking the chapters at the end of Chapter 4, and I think 3 might be the worst for me. Not that it was terrible, but I think Chapter 4 has been very good. Chapter 1 was iconic. Chapter 2, I didn't like at the time, but I think, like, looking back, I was just burnt out on the game. I think Chapter 3 might be the weakest chapter of Fortnite. And that's
And
not a
while
bad
I can
thing.
agree that it plays a part in how the game is viewed later on, it doesn't change the fact that early on, this game had undergone phenomenal changes that over the course of 2 years made it this powerhouse of a title that changed the gaming industry forever. Epic Games was able to craft this game into the success that it is today through content surrounding the loot pool as well as new vehicles, features and mechanics, map changes, and likely the biggest factor to its early success, the story that the game told through live events. Constant updates are something that most games in the past, and even some now, did not follow. The idea of getting new changes and updates to an online multiplayer style game is something that would best function on a monthly basis depending upon the size of the update. However, with the launch of Fortnite Battle Royale came a plethora of bug fixes, balance updates, and many quality of life changes that have shaped the game into the way that it functions today.
You couldn't build on the water back then. If you had a game end in Loot Lake, it was wild. And obviously it's just like wide open too. It was so bad.
Unlike with other games, these updates would come much more often, with most coming on a bi-weekly basis and at times a weekly basis, of not just a large number of changes to tackle early bugs with the game, but also brand new weapons and items that would serve to be incredible and very useful additions to the loot pool. The interesting thing about these updates in the early stages of the game is they sought to bring different features and additions like various weapons and items that added much needed content that filled previously vacant parts of the loot pool that today are integral to the experience of playing Fortnite. Unlike loot pool changes that we will often see in more recent chapters of the game, these additions would stay in the game past the season they were added rather than being treated like seasonal
That blue tack just hit, or maybe it was the pump he shot him with, never mind.
changes that would inevitably leave by the end of the season after serving the purpose of being short-term content that doesn't really affect future seasons. This meant that when something like the rifts were added into the game in Season 5, they stayed into the next season regardless of how it was themed or what content-related changes it decided to introduce. The benefit to this is it allowed Epic to make adjustments to these weapons like the pump that early on were rather unbalanced to make them into these phenomenal weapons that we see in later seasons of the chapter. Unfortunately, because these more recent seasons removed their weapon additions from prior seasons, these shotguns, ARs, and SMGs don't get the adjustments over the course of a chapter and are removed the following season to be replaced with something brand new. The issue with this is that because Epic doesn't allow these weapons to see future seasons, we will often end up with loot pools each season that consist of a large number of unbalanced weapons that make the game annoying or awkward to play. The obvious reason Epic does this is because more people are going to be excited when there are new weapons that are getting added into the game.
Don't talk back to me, you little shit!
At the same time, however, Epic needs to make sure that people are going to notice these weapons as an impactful or meaningful part of the loot pool. And rather than putting in the legwork to do so,
this is so annoying about the sticky and builds. If you guys only play zero build, you can shoot it at somebody's wall, and then if you shoot your shotgun as the sticky blows up, you're just guaranteed to get damage on them pretty much.
It will instead produce weapons that are far from balanced. Chapter 1 didn't need to do any of this because the changes that were made to the loot pool a good amount of the time were balance updates. People now recollect on different but mostly similar
quality
loot
of
pools
life
that
changes
we had over the span of Chapter 1. And it's no secret that a good number of people preferred these weapons not only because most of them were more powerful as well as being balanced, but they also had a high level of simplicity behind them that the community for this game could very easily get behind. Epic would add something that now seems basic like the suppressed pistol, and the community would enjoy these changes not only because they were basic and balanced, but they were also just good additions to the loot pool that didn't have to have some broken exploit associated with it to make it a usable weapon. Content in general surrounding Chapter 1 was something that Epic seemingly put more thought into, as items like the Rift to Go and Shadow Bomb offered immense rotation but came with the trade-off of having limited uses, whereas more recent rotational items will offer infinite rotation with no consequences. I do believe to an extent Epic dug themselves a hole by releasing so much content as the seasons went on. In doing so, they limited themselves to not being able to effectively make impactful changes in the future to the loot pool or other content related changes that are not completely unbalanced.
So I'm probably just going to talk about this video periodically with the different breaks because people complain when I pause it too much. The content of the game when it first launched was incredibly bare bones, and that made it kind of feel like you were playing this game as it was being created. You know, just small things would feel like a huge deal because the game was so bare bones at the time. And I think for a lot of players, myself included, this was like the first live service game that we ever played that got constant updates like this. And I feel like that also kind of added to the specialness of the game. Not only were we playing, you know, a new genre of game in a BR, but also our first ever live service game in a game that gets constant updates. I feel like the game was always changing and you needed to like play to see the new content before like something else new came in, you know? And also, the player base was also developing over time. Not only was the game developing and improving with new items and quality of life fixes, like, you know, builder pro keybinds, the ability to build through like on Loot Lake or like through miner structures like that, but also as the player base kind of learned the game over time, we went through like several different like metas and iterations of like how to play the game, even when like the loot pool didn't change as much. Like the pump was the main shotgun for a long time, but as players learned how to play the game better and learned how to build better, the game just evolved over time, even when Epic wasn't changing it, because we were all so new to the game. And I feel like that specialness and uniqueness is a lot of what made Chapter 1 so special, and it's just something you can't get back, unfortunately. It's not that Chapter 4 is bad, but it's just like people hadn't been playing the game for multiple years at that point. This map, I think, is going to be another big point.
The map changes during Chapter 1 are something that I've praised relentlessly on this channel. While I don't believe that the map plays as large of a role when it comes to what can make a season good when compared to the loot pool, there's no doubt that it's the most immediately noticeable change with the launch of a new season or chapter. People before anything will wonder what the new map will look like before they concern themselves over the loot pool. This is for good reason, because while the map doesn't necessarily dictate how good or bad a season is going to be, it is the first impression from a new season that players will get when loading into the game. Chapter 1 creates these impressions very well through the theme of these locations. Season 5 came out during the summer, so Epic decided to add the desert with a multitude of new and revamped locations that all introduced players very early on to the summer theme that this season was pushing for. And while the changes to the loot pool this season were very questionable, with the addition of the P90, many people still today remember this season as being a phenomenal summer season. In fact, if you go back and look throughout each of these seasons, you'll notice that the map is a good introduction to the theme of a season. And while later chapters have managed to do similar things with their additions, they were never to the extent of theming their locations entirely around the time of year. Seasons 6 and 7 both have great map changes, as they follow a very similar trend of adding locations that are...
Season 6 was Halloween and like darkness, and then Season 7 was snow and like Christmas themed
around the time of year. And while Season 8 and other seasons don't really follow this time of year theme, they still introduced a group of great locations without affecting any other changes that were implemented in the prior seasons. Even locations such as the Lucky Landing POI that were added incredibly early on as a Chinese New Year POI stayed in the game until the end of the chapter. The issue is that later chapters treat these changes to the map as more of seasonal changes, even if they don't pertain to the time of year. Epic will remove these changes that were implemented in prior seasons regardless of how good or bad they were. Overall, like I've stated in the past, Chapter 1's map had great map evolution because regardless of how the next season was themed, they left the changes that were made the prior season, which made for an incredible map.
So I 100% agree with that. Map changes are something that are very important to me and very important to like my enjoyment of the game and how special a new season feels. And that kind of goes into what I was saying before about like the game felt so different and special, and we were kind of playing it as it grew over time, you know? The map evolved over time. The like desert changed and then stayed there for a while. We got the snow biome, we got the jungle biome. The map really developed over time. Chapter 4 has been definitely a return to form in that regard, I think. If you look at the Chapter 4 Season 1 map and compare it to the map now, it's very, very different, like with all these new biomes coming in and then sticking around for the entirety of the chapter. Not a fan of the jungle, but I'm happy they made changes. Whereas like with Chapter 2 and 3 maps, a lot of the changes were more low-key or temporary. Like Chapter 2 had some changes, but usually those changes would go away after just one season. And in Chapter 3, it had some changes, but if you compare Chapter 3 Season 1 to Chapter 3 Season 4, a lot of the same POIs were still there. Chapter 4 and Chapter 1 changed a lot over the duration of it. So I think Chapter 4 has done a really good job in that regard. But map changes and the map development is something that made Chapter 1 so special to a lot of players, myself included, that we kind of lost in Chapter 2 and 3, I think. And that's before we get into the events. This is another thing that Fortnite was kind of the first game for a lot of us that did these sorts of things, and it made the game feel once again so special and iconic and new. And I keep emphasizing that because I think a lot of what made Chapter 1 special was just that it was most people's introduction to Fortnite and like this genre of game. Volcano. I slept
Even
through
though
that.
Epic Games over the years have consistently updated the game and kept creating new weapons and items and meaningful map changes,
Oh, that one just really sealed the deal.
Epic Games very early on introduced the idea of storytelling using the medium of Battle Royale with in-game live events. To say that live events in the past as a whole have been a major success for Epic is an understatement. No other game up until this point or even past this point has been able to execute or replicate the hype, visuals, climactic moments, and storytelling capabilities that these events are capable of creating. While many people today, including myself, are not very happy with some of the more recent events. Oh my god, are you shitting me?
My power went out during Fracture. I had the most viewers I'd ever had on a live stream, and my power went out.
Epic is very capable of creating phenomenal experiences that most people who play Fortnite don't want to miss. These events were so special because of the individuality that came behind participating in them. Epic was able to achieve this through its interactivity, whether that came from something as simple as different viewing points from others watching the same event, giving you a different perspective on it, or by going as far as allowing players to vote on returning weapons for the game by literally being put into the canonical vault for this game. The suspense alone that came with a good number of these events created an experience that brought the community together, and for most are the highlights of this game. While the events themselves performing good doesn't necessarily impact the gameplay of the next season, early on it was one of the main contributing factors to what made OG Fortnite so special, with the wide number of capabilities to introduce a brand new medium of storytelling through these interactive climactic moments that we experienced in in-game live events.
This is actually happening right now.
Black hole. Okay, so the events are huge. We haven't had any in Chapter 4, and Fracture was terrible. It's kind of recently come out that Epic didn't make the decision to end Chapter 3 in only a year until late 2022. So it ended in 2022. So they probably didn't have the longest time to make Fracture, and that's why it ended up being so bad, and that's why the conclusion of Chapter 3 ended up being so bad, because it was like kind of, they didn't have the most time to plan it, you know? Hopefully the end of Chapter 4 event is good. I agree with everything he said there. I think another thing to kind of talk about is one thing that's important with the events, I think, is how it changes the game we play. And I feel like that's what's going to be kind of lost if the only events we get are, you know, once a year end of chapter events. A lot of what made the events iconic was like XPOI getting destroyed, or like he showed with the unvaulting event, players being able to choose to unvault the drum gun via the event. When it's just end of chapter events, it doesn't really affect the map. Like, we just know the map we play on is going to get destroyed, and then we're going to be on a new map. You know what I mean? And the aftermath of the events and how it would affect the game we play, I feel like was always like super important. And also, I think I saw Clark Clint say this in a video. The events are like the one thing that the Fortnite community can all like come together for, bro. Like, Fortnite is so divisive in terms of like so many different like kind of communities and different types of players playing it. But it doesn't matter if you're like the most casual player ever. If you grind creative only up, if you're a comp player, like everyone gets hyped for the events, you know? So hopefully we get more during the course of Chapter 5 and not just like conclusion events.
Still to date, no game has been able to reach the scale that Fortnite has in terms of changes without justifying releasing a brand new title. While this video was made to break down what made OG Fortnite so special and talk about the flaws that later chapters introduce, Epic does use some of what Chapter 1 did so well to their advantage in later chapters. Chapter 4 specifically has a map that each season has built upon itself by adding good changes each season.
Look at that. This is the map we're on.
Chapter 4 specifically has a map that each season has built upon.
This is the map we started with in Chapter 4.
Itself by adding good changes each season.
And this is the map we're on now. Not all these changes have been good. The jungle is not it. But you can't deny that this map has changed a lot over the course of Chapter 4.
Season while not affecting previous ones. The truth is while Fortnite isn't nearly as popular as it used to be, a good portion of that is out of their control, as the content surrounding this game just doesn't perform as well as it used to.
100%.
The game itself still gets a large amount of attention from Epic and is still one of the most played games in the world right now. I specifically didn't mention the content creation aspects that made the game special early on, because ultimately that's not something that Epic can control, as the landscape of YouTube and other social media platforms has changed so significantly over the span of 5 years. The things that I did mention in this video are changes that Epic can make to allow for a more enjoyable experience of playing Fortnite. For most people, it may be what I mentioned in this video, but let me know down in the comments below what made your early days of Fortnite feel so special for you. Anyways, thank you for watching and have a great day.
So yeah, I kind of already concluded everything. I think Fortnite is in a great state right now. I think Chapter 4 has been incredible. It is wild that we're 6 years into this game's life cycle. It does not feel like that at all to me. Like, I'm always very nostalgic for the game around this time of year because the first Fortnitemares in 2017, it was very simple. If we got what we got in 2017 now, people would be raging about how basic it was. But that was one of the first things that kind of made the game feel special and unique to me because, again, I hadn't really played games that had holiday events before, and Fortnite was the first that I played that did it. And a lot of what made Fortnite special and unique, I think, was just the time of the game, and you can't get that back. Chapter 1 was incredible. I don't think it's just nostalgia that people overrate it. That's partially it. But I think Fortnite has also been going in a very good spot. I think Chapter 4 has been really, really good. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Also, check out his channel. It'll be linked down in the description. I think his content is really good.